Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be starting the process to try to figure out what kind of hydraulic leak we got on this dozer. Of course, the first stage is I've got to clean it enough to be able to see it. So I'm going to set you up over here and start the pressure washing, and then we'll get into trying to diagnose this thing and see what it's going to take to fix it. So this is actually the side where we've got the leak. I just needed to clean the whole dang thing just because I could need to check it over and make sure there's no other issues going on. And plus it's pretty nasty. Okay, I think I've at least gotten this thing clean enough to find out where it's leaking and work on it without becoming extremely nasty. So what I'm gonna do is move it someplace where I can have a more convenient space to work, since this is now a mud hole, and it'll be up closer to the tools and everything, so we can work on it. So once I get it up here and get it moved, I'll try to show you where I think the leak is. Well, as I suspected, the leak is down in here, and it's on the tilt circuit. So the hydraulic circuit that tilts the blade from side to side so you can put one corner down or the other. And what I'm going to do is remove this to get access to these hoses. Remove this. There should be probably 3 bolts holding that in, and I'm sure it's packed full of dirt too, because the hose runs under here and across up here and actuates this cylinder. I have to figure out which side of it's leaking so I know which hose to fix, but I'm pretty sure it's this one. You know, the other hose runs on the other side, so this is where it's leaking. So I'm going to set y'all up and see if we can get some video of the actual leak down in here. But I don't know that it's going to work given the light and where I'm going to have to put the camera. I don't know, to get a good shot of it. In order to get to this hose to get it off, I've got to take that clamp off, the giant dirt trap. The bolts are rusted up pretty good. Don't look like they've got really much thread left on the exposed section. So what I'm going to try to do is get them out of there a little at a time and see if we can keep from stripping the threads off of the nut, which should be fine. And when I go to the parts store to get the hose made, I'll try to pick up some new bolts. They're metric. Best I can figure, the head on them is a 16 millimeter, but they're so rusted up that I don't know for sure. Now, if y'all have questions about this dozer, it's not my dozer. This is a dozer we borrowed from a friend of the family, and he bought it not too long ago for a specific job from another guy, I think somewhere over in eastern Arkansas or western Mississippi. I don't remember which. And overall, it's a pretty good dozer, but it's been very much unloved by the owner who got it, or who had it before our friend got it. And the deal for me using it is I got to fix stuff on it. You know, of course I'd fix stuff that I broke regardless, but there's a lot of maintenance that's been neglected on this thing. Both of the track adjusters need to be rebuilt. They leak. The undercarriage is probably 50% or less. It needs new sprocket sections. It needs a couple of bottom rollers either rebuilt or replaced, depending on whether or not the hole is walled out, and it won't hold the bearing anymore. There's just little minor stuff, like all the weather stripping on the doors is bad, so you know, it rains, it leaks a little bit and that kind of stuff. But overall, pretty good machine. I've been very impressed with how well it actually works and how well it pushes stuff. So what I've got here is a short wobble extension on my 1/2-inch drive. Of course, I'm using a 20-volt battery because the 18-volt NiCads are about crapped out. And I'm just gonna slowly work this thing in and out to see if I can get it to come out of there without destroying the nut that's welded onto the lift arm of the blade. Well, that wasn't too abusive. And I'm using this WD-40, and it's not so much as a penetrating oil, but as a cleaner to try to get some of the dirt and rust off of it. And I know y'all hear me gripe about designs on stuff quite a bit on these videos when I'm fixing stuff, but this is another one of those things where I don't know what the right answer would have been, but this is a massive dirt trap. And if you don't, basically if you don't pressure wash this thing after every use, it just holds dirt in there, and you've got the abrasion problem on the hoses, but you've also got the rust problem, and it's just ridiculous. And they've put hard lines in here, hard, long, bent, hard ends, and it's just kind of a pain to work on this stuff. So, can I get any more slack in that? Probably not. So I guess we need to just continue taking stuff off of here. Those are 16s as well. And apparently this generation of the D3 was made in Japan, so it's got a lot of metric fasteners on it. These go into blind hole. You can see that boss, so I'm hoping that they're gonna come out all right and not break off. Apparently 16 millimeters, one of those that crosses over to 5/8. I don't know if you've ever bought metric wrench and socket sets and seen that there are missing ones in the set. Usually that's because they cross over to some sort of SAE size that most people would have in their tool kit. And when I put these back together, I will probably put them back in with anti-seize to keep them from rusting up in there so bad. Because see how it kind of flattened the threads off? That's just from rust. And kind of like the tractor, it doesn't matter how much you pressure wash one of these, unless you spend a whole day doing it and clean and look and clean and look, you're going to end up with stuff you miss. And of course, that is just completely rusted off. So I don't know that I'm going to be able to get that off of there at all. Take care of your stuff, folks. Because if you don't, you end up spending a lot of money fixing it. So the bolt I'm trying to get to is right there. You can probably see the head is rusted almost completely off of it. I'm afraid, as rusty as this thing is, it's just going to crumble. Okay, I have to go grab the Dremel tool. It's small enough I can get in there and see if I can grind the head off of that bolt and get that cover off, and then I'll worry about getting the broke off bolt out of there. All right, so what I'm using here is just an abrasive cutoff wheel on the Dremel tool, and I'm powering it off of my inverter that I've got mounted in my truck. It's a 115 volt, I think 2000 watt inverter. Just, you know, Harbor Freight. It was cheap and it works. So, and I don't try to run big tools off of it. I use it to recharge batteries, run stuff like this, you know, my chainsaw sharpener, just, you know, different small things. It'll run a small 4-inch grinder okay, but things that are real heavy demand, it doesn't like it. There's that bolt that I'm trying to cut. And I'm just gonna have to take it off of there piecemeal because I can't get in flat and cut the head off. And what I'll do is cut the pieces off and then grind it down so I can get this cover off. So now I'm gonna take a cold chisel and see if I can cut those pieces off of there and get us enough clearance to Alright, we'll see if this chisel that was given to me will actually work a little better. It's more of a masonry chisel, so I don't know if it's gonna work or not. May not have to find enough grind on it, but we'll see. No, that ain't a good sign. This is what happens when you don't maintain your stuff. Because that weld for this boss that held it on top of the arm has completely rusted away, and just me hitting it with the hammer knocked it off of there. And that's a solid line. If you're looking for a dang air nozzle, don't buy these Campbell house spell things you find at Walmart. They're crap. This stupid thing, I think it's pretty much leaked since day one. Uh-oh, run out of fuel. If the leaking California approved fuel nozzles that have been inflicted on the rest of us irritate the fire out of you, these are called easy pour spouts, and they come with a vent so you can actually pour fuel in without dumping the stuff everywhere. Looks like this one may be leaking a little because I probably screwed up the gasket, but you don't spill near as much fuel with these as you do with the safety ones, and you can actually get fuel out of the can. Those stupid spring-loaded, carb-approved fuel nozzles. I've dumped more fuel all over stuff than I ever have using a regular fuel can. That's just like these diesel trucks. I had a diesel truck that consistently got 26 miles to the gallon on the highway, and then all this new EPA crap got put in. What comes out the tailpipe may look cleaner, but I'm using 30 to 50% more fuel to have it look clean, which does not strike me as overwhelmingly environmentally friendly. But it's all about appearance. Okay, so what we're taking off, these are line clamps that hold this hard line. There's this one here, and there's one over there, and I'm probably gonna have to take this clamp off here to get enough slack to move this stuff around. And also, if y'all are find yourself in need, this little spud wrench style ratchet, I got a Tractor Supply, primarily designed for like working on metal buildings, because you can line up stuff, get you faster, and then tighten it up. But the thing I like about it is it's 1/2-inch drive on one side and 3/8 on the other. So, and plus you've got a flexible handle, and it's small enough in diameter you can get a cheater on it pretty easy. Seems to be pretty well made. And upon examining that weld where that boss broke off a minute ago, it looks like that they had a cold weld. They didn't get good bond between the weld and the boss. It was good enough that it stayed stuck on there through the assembly and painting process, but it was not good enough for long term. Okay, now that we've got these lines loose and I've got them out of that bracket here underneath this cylinder and separated, we can start this thing up and try to figure out which one is actually leaking, and maybe try to figure out where it's leaking, because everything that was jammed together down in here is wet with hydraulic oil, so I don't know beyond it was leaking in that area which hose it is. So yes, it appears that it's that hard line that goes all the way to the front and looks like it's got a hole rusted in it. So, what's it going to take to get that loose and out of there? I probably need to fire the air compressor back up and get some of that nastiness out of there. I don't know. Looks like it's 13/16 on that side. And 3/4 there. Okay. Oh, that's a nasty mess. As rusty as this line is at the fitting, I don't know if I'm gonna have to replace this soft line too, which goes all the way back here, and I'm pretty sure connects up underneath the cab to the controls. Should be a swivel fitting on one end. I hope it's the end that is on the piece that needs to be replaced and not this end, because if it is, that means that I'm probably going to end up having to replace both of these hoses. it and see what happens. That ain't good. And I don't have a 3/4 13/16 tubing wrench on the truck. The biggest I've got is a 11/16. Come on. Fit. Move, or did it just round the nut over? Well, looks like it might have moved a little bit. Oh, did we get lucky? Like you've heard me say before, it's better to be lucky than good. I'll have to take the wire brush to this fitting on the soft line going into that bottom hard line so I can try to clean it up and save it. It's just rusty enough that I'm not going to be able to, well, maybe now, turn it by hand. Okay. And of course that looks like some kind of crazy fitting. I don't know if we're gonna have it at the dang parts store. Well, inside of there looks pretty good. See, inside, I don't know if that's gonna focus. Inside looks all right. Stick that up there out of the way. I really hope I don't have to get this cat, because if I do, it'll be Monday before it gets here. Okay, this should be the connection we've got to get loose right there. Looks like it's in a lot better shape than the other one was. Is it 3/4? Yes. And 13/16 on this end. Kinda, mostly. It's all about the leverage. That out of there. Oh, well, look at that. Came right out. So, let's see if we can clean some of the sponge off of there and figure out where the hole is. knowing full well that that hole is in there just because that thing sat in rust for so long. Now, I'm not sure why or what the logic was for putting a hard line in there, especially in a place that's a dirt trap. But see how this thing has got scaly rust all over it? It's been submerged in wet dirt probably since about 2 days after it was new. And if you look at this, well, yep, there's the hole right there. I don't know if y'all can see that or not, but there's the hole. That little thing right there is what caused all of this headache. So now we need to go to the parts store and see if we can get another one. All right, that'll be about a quick $80. Yeah. So what I got to do to try to fix this thing, I'm going to grind this bolt off and pull it through, get that boss out of the bottom side, then start working on getting this bolt out of it. And then I'm going to have to grind the rust off of the arm on the dozer, so we got a clean surface to weld this back to. And I'm gonna have to space this up so I can get all of these lined up and get everything back in place and get a tack weld on the bottom of this boss on the dozer, then pull the bolts out and then re-weld the whole thing. It's gonna be noisy. It's got to fire up the welding machine, get the grinder going. Try this the easy way first. I didn't figure that was going to work. What I'm gonna do is weld a nut on the end of this broken off or cut off bolt and give me something to turn it with, and the combination of putting a nut on there so I've got something to turn and the heat that'll go into that when I weld it should break that loose, I hope. Since this is kind of nasty, I'm going to weld this stuff with 60-10 3/32 rod. It'll burn through any crap that's on there and still get good adhesion. And plus the zinc on the nut isn't going to mess with it as bad as if you're trying to use 70-18. Cool for a minute, and then we'll try to get it out of there. If you'll put penetrating oil on something when it's hot, it'll suck it in a lot better than if you just sprayed it on when it's cold. Figured that's what was going to happen. And of course, since this thing's metric, I don't have a tap for it. Broke the bolt off. The weld held, but the bolt sheared off in the heat affected zone because it's so tight in there. If that's the drill bit I was using to start a hole in a piece of hardened steel. I ended up drilling that stupid hole with a masonry bit because it had the carbide on it, and good Lord. What in the heck? Bolts that hard, you wouldn't think that it had been. What in the world? Nothing's ever simple. That stuff don't want to drill. Okay, apparently there's something pretty hard on the end of that bolt because it just melted my dang drill bit. I don't know why that thing would be that dang hard. Okay, plan B. So what I'm gonna do here is try to scrape these threads out as best I can because they're pretty rusty in there. And since I don't have a metric tap, I'm gonna make a field expedient tap here and see if we can clean those up enough to use it. If I can, I'll grind that off flat and weld it back on upside down because it's threaded all the way through. If I can even get that bolt to start. I guess I'm gonna have to break down and buy some metric taps. Okay, since we're not trying to clean out or trying to thread the hole, we're just trying to clean it out. That'll work in a pinch. And you don't want to get the thing going and just crank on it. You want to work it in and out to clean all the crap out of there. Okay, now we need to cut that off. Grind that flat and we'll put that back in upside down. Alright, now put a little bit of bevel on here to get a better weld penetration, so when we put it flat on that surface I can get the rod into that bevel and hopefully tie it in better than it was from the factory. Okay, now I'm going to go in and grind off that weld where that boss is attached so I can clean it up and hopefully get it welded back on there. And of course I can't see this stupid thing. Well, maybe. That's going to be interesting. Yeah, got it stuck good enough that I should be able to weld it back in place. It's lined up because it's against the curve in the original weld. Now I just need to crank the heat up on the machine and get a good weld in there. burning this a little hot for these 3/32 rods because it's burning the flux off way up the rod, but as thick as all of that stuff is, it's giving me good penetration. Okay, now that the repair necessary to make the repair is done, it's time for me to put this hose back on. I could not get a hard line made locally, so I got a soft line, and the only problem that I can foresee with it really is going to be getting the clamps back on, and I may have to go get out of my stash a different type of clamp. But we're going to run this hose through there and see if we can get it hooked back up and go from there. If I can figure out how it's supposed to run. Going to be 2 13/16 or is it going to be 3/4 and 13/16? I think it's going to be 2 13/16. Well, maybe not. See these fittings, the way they work, there's an O-ring on the, I guess, the male end, and then it's just a flat face on the female end, and they sync together and give you an O-ring seal. It's actually a pretty good fitting design. About the worst thing I've had to do most of the time is just replace the O-rings occasionally if you start having a leak. Somebody kind of chewed that fitting up. I had to get an adapter to try to get this, make sure that this hose would fit because of that curve 90-degree angle that was in the steel line. I don't know that I'm gonna need it, but we got it just in case. I might should have put this end on first. I think that's what's gonna have to happen. Or maybe not. Maybe I'll just use that fitting. I think that's what I'm going to do. Using the other fitting is just an extra place for it to leak, which I don't particularly care for, but it'll make the installation easier. Since we need that to point up, I loosened that other end off so we can turn the hose and get everything lined up. Is that cross-threaded? Of course it is. Ah, come on, you. Can't tell if it's cross-threaded or not. It's just crusty. But the important thing is that the face of that fitting is clean where it's going to go against that O-ring. I'm going to have to pull that out and get it so I can work on it. Just cruddy. Okay, now we can tighten that back up. Pull it up in there. Now, one thing I have done in the past is lost an O-ring out of here, put the whole thing together, and then found out that the O-ring was missing. So always before you put these fittings together, double check that the O-ring's in there. Okay, so before we put all these covers and everything back on here and go try to find some hose clamps to hold that line down, we need to start it and test it and make sure we don't have any leaks. Y'all watch and tell me. good. As long as we haven't gotten a leak on the other side now. Oh, that's an irritating system. I think I'm going to get 4 chances to screw this up. See if I can fold this little clamp up. Since the doubler is swaged on these in the hole, when you drill them out, the little doubler comes off. I mean, we're not going to be hanging off of this thing, so I don't know as it really matters. Gonna put anti-seize on all of this mess to try to prevent that stuff from happening. As bad again. Of course, I said in that tractor repair video, pipe dope and anti-seize, 2 things I hate messing with because you end up with it all over you. See, nice gooey mess. Okay, well, that seems to have worked. Now we need to put that cover back on. That dude in there. Cover. Which way does she go? Like that. Where you can get to that grease zerk. All right, folks. Looks like this one's done till I break something else. Thanks for hanging out with me and getting this done. I hope you learned something out of it. Maybe you got some entertainment, but now it's time to put this back to work. Y'all have a good day.